In the world of competitive Magic the Gathering, there is always a constructed format available for players who are trying to qualify for the Regional Championships or even the Pro Tour. However, the format rotates every few months. For example, the current Regional Championship Qualifier season is modern, while the season before was Pioneer. This means it's been quite a while since the standard format has been relevant for competitive players, despite the several large, impactful changes it's gone through in the last several months. This puts Standard in an interesting position as we draw closer to the start of the next upcoming regional qualifier season, as its landscape looks very different now than the last time it was the designated format for the regional championships. Let's take a look at the Standard format in anticipation of the upcoming regional qualifier season, which kicks off next month. With big format shakeups coming in the form of not one, not two, but three of the most played cards in the format getting banned, as well as the announcement that Standard would now be moving to a 3-year rotation, means that the format is currently in a very interesting place. Yes, the most powerful cards in the format, like Shoulder the Apocalypse, Raffine Scheming Seer, Leyline Binding, and Atraxa Grand Unifier, are still some of the best available pieces around which to build your deck, but the surrounding cast in each deck keeps changing as new sets continue being released. Let's take a look at some of the strongest decks in the format and how they've changed over the last few months. Starting at the top with Esper Raffine. This deck has undergone many changes since Streets of New Capenna saw the release of Raffine Scheming Seer, arguably the most powerful creature in the standard format. At first it was a mid-range deck, curving 2-mana creatures like Tenacious Underdog or Danik Pious Apprentice into Raffine. Later, the deck evolved into the 27-land legendary creature-heavy version leaning on Plaza of Heroes to curve Skrelv Defector Might into a 2-drop like Thalia Guardian of Thraben, then Raffine, in addition to 7 or 8 of the channel lands from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty to provide the deck with cheap interaction, as they could often be channeled for only 1 mana. However, the printing of sideboard Silver Bullet Lithomantic Barrage put a large dent in the win rate of Esper Legends, and it failed to perform at Pro Tour March of the Machine. Many players pivoted to an Esper list lacking all the legends, opting instead for better interaction in the form of removal and counter magic like Make Disappear and Go for the Throat. With potent 2-mana instant speed threats like Fairy Mastermind and Virtue of Loyalty, Esper midrange became more of an aggro tempo deck, looking to stick an early threat, backed by Raffine, then protecting it with counter magic instead of Plaza of Heroes. The latest innovations come in the form of a couple more extraordinary 2-drops in Deep Cavern Bat and Subterranean Schooner. The Bat can clear the way for Raffine the following turn, while also becoming a threat that's impossible to race due to its lifelink, evasion, and the +1/+1 counters from the Flying Sphinx. The Schooner also fits perfectly here as a 2-mana threat that doesn't die to the most commonly played removal spells in the format, Cut Down or Go for the Throat, while also surveilling the top of your deck and pumping up Raffine in order to get it out of Cut Down or Lithomantic Barrage range. Getting a fantastic creature land in the form of Restless Anchorage, the Esper deck is unsurprisingly considered the best deck in the format, with a 17% metagame share over the past 2 months, while putting copies into the top 8s of almost every single Magic Online challenge. This will definitely be the boogeyman of the format once the next Regional Championship Qualifier season starts. The next pillar of Standard is 5-color control, making up 14% of the metagame over the last 2 months and placing regularly in the top 8s of Magic Online challenges and other large tournaments. While the deck existed in different forms prior to March of the Machine being released, it was on the back of new battle card Invasion of Zendikar that saw the deck suddenly cement its place in Tier 1. Ramping into 7 mana on turn 4, enabling a turn 5 Atraxa Grand Unifier went so far over the top of other decks, it immediately became the best endgame in Standard. Enabled by the Tri-lands from Streets of New Capenna, the deck not only has access to tools in every color, but can also easily power up the domain spells like Herd Migration and the extremely powerful Leyline Binding. Recent sets have only strengthened the deck's position in Tier 1, with additions like Up the Beanstalk from Wilds of Eldraine, which plays perfectly with the 6 casting cost removal spell that you always pay only 1 mana to cast, Leyline Binding, as well as your sweepers like Sunfall and other powerful late-game spells. The Lost Caverns of Ixalan saw another very useful tool introduced to Standard in the form of Cavern of Souls, which gave the 5-color ramp deck a valuable tool to shrug off the most efficient check on their power, counter magic, like Make Disappear and Disdainful Stroke out of their opponent's sideboards. With no effective way to counter the 5-color deck's late-game plan, one of the only ways to reliably beat the deck is to attack quickly and go underneath them. Speaking of attacking quickly, aggressive decks have been on the rise recently, with Azorius Aggro making up the largest share of the standard metagame over the past couple months at 14%. While the Azorius deck was a low-curve aggro deck built around the soldier creature type earlier this year, it has since morphed into a slower, more reactive deck, while also playing a better interactive game by protecting its threats with counter magic and threatening end-step instant-speed cards like Wandering Emperor and Zephyr Sentinel. This meant dropping cards like Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and Siege Veteran. At the World Championships in September, we saw the deck transform even further by dropping Valiant Veteran for slower, grindier cards like Wedding Announcement and Lunarch Veteran, which better enable powerful Convoke spell Knight Errant of Eos. Recent powerful additions come in the form of Virtue of Loyalty, giving the deck another instant speed threat early, as well as a powerful late-game engine wrapped up in one card, alongside Werefox Bodyguard, which is essentially a more powerful instant speed Brutal Cathar. Will this deck continue to be the best aggressive strategy in Standard? Red mages may have something to say about that. The other aggro deck that's seen a big boost in its power level is Red Deck Wins, or Mono Red Aggro, which made up 11% of the metagame over the last 2 months. Aggressive red strategies have been a part of competitive Magic the Gathering for almost 3 decades now, which is why it was strange that these decks were almost entirely absent from the top of the Standard metagame for the past 2 years. One of the big reasons why is that there was a dearth of powerful 2-mana red creatures printed into Standard in recent years, of which the deck needs to have a critical mass of in order to be competitive. That changed recently with the addition of Charming Scoundrel from Wilds of Eldraine, which does so much for this deck for only 2 mana, from hitting your opponent to fixing your draw or ramping to a double or triple spell on turn 3. The aggressive red decks picked up another potent threat from the same set in Godric, Cloaked Reveler, which is trivially easy to trigger with things like Kumano Faces Kakazan and the aforementioned Charming Scoundrel, becoming a hard-hitting, evasive threat every single turn. One other factor contributing to the rise of red deck wins is the decline of heavy black decks in Standard, which all played 3 to 4 copies of Shouldered the Apocalypse, a card that felt like a sideboard powerhouse against aggro strategies, but was played in the main deck of many lists. Rakdos, Grixis, and Mono Black were all decks that were considered Tier 1 in Standard over the past year, but fell off very abruptly after the bannings a few months ago, leading to far less Shouldereds running around. Are the conditions now ideal for red deck wins to steal the spotlight from Azorius Aggro and take its place in Tier 1 alongside the mid-range and control strategies? The upcoming Standard Regional Championship Qualifier season will surely show us one way or another. That's all for this week, but tune in next week as we cover all the latest news, tournament results, spoilers, and more here on Magic Insider.